What happens when a leader in West Africa refuses to bow to outside pressure, especially when that pressure comes from Washington? What happens when the demands aren't just political, but economic? Tariffs, access to natural resources, trade deals. What if a deal gone wrong could shift the balance not just of wealth, but of influence?
But so far, no credible source has confirmed a formal U.S. tariff demand or a treaty or document signed by both parties. What is confirmed is that Traoré has been very vocal about rejecting what he sees as unfair terms, about refusing to let foreign powers dictate how Burkina Faso sells its gold, how it sets its prices, who gets to refine it, and where. This is in line with his previous policy of nationalizing foreign mining operations or renegotiating contracts to favor domestic processing and ownership. In that sense, blocking tariff demands may be less about refusing a specific demand from Trump personally and more about the broader push from Western powers to maintain economic leverage over mineral-rich African countries. Traoré appears to be resisting those levers. So, what are the stakes? When a leader resists those kinds of demands, the West may see losses in access, in profit margins, in influence. For Burkina Faso, the opportunity is to keep more of the value chain in country, to add more local jobs, to build domestic refining capacity, to keep more revenue instead of shipping raw ore out. But with those potential gains come risks. First, there's the risk of retaliation. Tariffs, sanctions, trade barriers, tools the powerful use. If the U.S. or Western institutions decide to impose punitive measures, Burkina Faso could lose market access, foreign investment, or face broader economic isolation. Second, internal pressure. Traoré's government must reconcile this external resistance with domestic demands. Citizens expect not just defiance, but results: better schools, safer neighborhoods, better roads. If economic instability follows, or inflation or unemployment worsens, rhetoric alone will not sustain popular support. Third, the propaganda battlefield. In the age of social media and deepfakes, stories get more extreme than reality. A claim that Traoré struck back at Trump or Traoré blocked tariff demands becomes a rallying cry, whether or not every detail is factually verified. This can strengthen his legitimacy among supporters, but also sharpen criticism from opponents. Let's look at possible scenarios.
Scenario 1. Sustained economic independence. Traoré builds domestic refining capacity, controls mining contracts, and fosters regional trade that bypasses Western middlemen. He reinvests revenue into infrastructure, security, education. In this scenario, Burkina Faso begins to chart a path toward economic autonomy. The West's nightmare, seeing one African country successfully show that dependency is optional. Scenario 2. Retaliation and isolation. Western powers impose trade restrictions, reduce aid, or discourage investment. Burkina Faso's gold markets suffer. Inflation and shortages of imports spike. Internal instability rises. Militants and insurgents take advantage of economic distress. The dream of sovereignty becomes a very difficult balancing act. Scenario 3. Compromise under pressure. Traoré may be compelled to negotiate. Maybe he yields some tariff or export concessions, or allows foreign firms more access, but under stricter terms. He might accept partnerships rather than full national control. This might be less dramatic, but perhaps more feasible in the short term. Which of these paths seems likely? Evidence suggests Traoré is pushing hard on sovereignty. He has already taken steps to nationalize industries, restrict foreign leverage over resource sectors, maybe even leverage relationships with non-Western powers to undercut Western pressure. His rhetoric is clear: Africa should benefit more fully from its own wealth. But success will depend on execution. Does Burkina Faso have the infrastructure, governance, and stability needed? Can it protect its gold-exporting supply chains from corruption, smuggling, conflict? Can revenue be collected reliably? Can foreign partnerships be managed without giving up too much control? As for the West, if Burkina Faso succeeds, it could change how Western powers negotiate trade and investment in Africa. The old model, where resource-rich countries provide raw materials cheaply and to take foreign aid in return, would be at risk. Companies used to favorable deals might push back, and governments might leverage diplomacy or economic pressure more aggressively. Has the West's nightmare already begun? Maybe. Already there are ripple effects, increased attention in Washington and Brussels, media coverage framing these issues as Africa rising, no longer dependent. Some investors are cautious. Some Western companies are recalculating profit models. Traoré's stance has also inspired other leaders who want similar autonomy. But nightmare is a strong term. For the West, it may mean losing some leverage. For Burkina Faso, it might mean walking the tightrope. Traoré's challenge is immense. Build institutions fast enough, secure borders, deliver social and economic stability, handle external pressure, and manage internal dissent.
The untold truth is this moment isn't just about blocking tariff demands, it is about defining a new kind of leadership in Africa, one that refuses to be a junior partner in its own wealth, one willing to risk isolation, economic turbulence, even political conflict, to gain respect, dignity, and control over its own resources. In the years ahead, we will see whether this gamble pays off, whether Traoré's Burkina Faso becomes a model for sovereignty and economic self-determination, or whether the pressures overwhelm him and the state resorts to compromise or coercion. What will the world make of this? Will nations beyond Burkina Faso see this as a blueprint or a cautionary tale? Can the West adjust, change its expectations, engage with Africa on more equal terms? Or will tariff wars, trade sanctions, and economic rivalry become the new front lines of a global power struggle? The story is still being written, but one thing seems clear: the old rules are under strain. Traoré's refusal, real or symbolic, to accept demands that seem designed to maintain external control is forcing a rethink. And in that rethink, perhaps, lies the future of Africa's geopolitical agency.